didn't make the change to the village code. So when this ordinance was prepared, it didn't catch the error.
Okay. Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. All right, I'm going to remove under action item 6E and go on to F. Motion to approve ordinance 26-17, amending section 173B2 to add to the village, the village budget officer / finance assistant.
So moved.
Moved by Janet, second?
Second.
Second by Therese. Discussion? No? No? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Heffelberger?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We're on to discussion items. A, trustees retaining legislative counsel independently to advise the trustees on matters relating to their legislative duties, kind of what Nick touched on earlier. Moved by Mike?
Just discussion.
Yeah? I'm sorry, discussion?
Just discussion.
Go ahead, yeah.
As we've been talking around back and forth, we did do this before. It was costly at the beginning, but it got less costly as time went on, because I think we'll find most, contrary to my joke that I've used in the past about what's 2 + 2, the attorney says, how much do you want it to be? For the most part, they'll say 4. But there'll be a couple of times that they may not say 4, and, you know, if any person on this body is uncomfortable, they need to have good information with which to make the decision, and that would be Madam President as well. And there wasn't a clear mechanism last time for the village president to access legislative counsel. I think it would simply be, if the village president has concerns, she can ask one of the trustees to bring it to the legislative council. I believe we had $7,000 was the initial budget per month last time. I don't think we're in that state where we need that kind of amount at this point. And then we also had a mechanism whereby we had the question that wanted to be, or we just like our previous discussion, we had to be clear on what was being asked of the council. In the beginning, it was just a second village attorney, and that part was necessary for the 3 trustees at that time that wanted it. And it was eventually one of them that, you know, made the realization that that part of it was unnecessary. So then that second quote-unquote village attorney stopped attending meetings, and it was strictly, you know, to the point where I think we're already at, where this is this ordinance, we have a question about it, could you answer it for us? And as long as 2 trustees agree that's the question, it gets posed to the outside legislative council, and then we get answered. So I think we should do this as we had talked earlier. I think it's necessary at this time.
Frank?
I like the idea of having 2 trustees do it. I don't like the idea of having a trustee able to go to the other firm, because I think you're gonna rack up charges. So my suggestion would be that whatever the issue is, we frame it in a written question or written, so it doesn't get off the rails, and they just give us a specific answer. So I think we need to control this, just to control the expense. So that would be my suggestion.
Janet?
I have a question of trustee Millet, and then maybe a question for Attorney Forte. So do you know what specific changes you want to make to the code defining legislative counsel? Because it speaks specifically to trustees. So do you want that to remain as it is and have the president's question or concern ride along with, with the trustees? Is that the notion?
My original take on it is, it would, I think the structure in statute for legislative council only refers to the corporate authorities minus the president, if I'm reading it right. And council can, either council can. And so, as a practical matter, I was thinking we could, with our understanding, allow that to be 7 instead of 6.
So you think we could allow the president to be one of the people that can ask those
Yeah, I mean,
questions?
I think we can, as a body, decide that.
And then since we were talking about 2 trustees, would that be the president plus a trustee? Would that be the president on their own? What was your thought?
No, it'd have to be 2 of the 7 of us.
Okay. And a question for Attorney Forte. Would it work, do you think, for us to ask another attorney at your firm to provide this additional counsel for us, rather than us having to go through the potential, let's just say challenges of trying to find another firm that everyone is comfortable with?
I think that would be up to the decision of the board, but, I mean, I can say that the majority, probably 99% of the work that we perform for the village is performed by myself and Mr. Wallace in the back. So we certainly have attorneys who are available that if a second opinion needed to be provided, it could be. But that would be up to the board. So.
Thank you.
Kim?
Well, I think if we're looking for a true second opinion, I think it needs to be a different firm. And I think we also need to consider the president's wishes as well here, as well as our own, but I'm under the opinion that we should have a different firm.
Trace?
And then I would just say that the same restriction should apply to this second opinion that should apply also to the first opinion, that we also, need to be aware of how often people are also using our village attorney, because the costs, we already know, can get very high. And there are some people who, make several phone calls and possibly abuse that authority as well. So what works for one works for both.
All right. Anything else?
Yeah, I'd also say that the second opinion, second firm is just for legislative use and not staff.
Sorry, yeah, that's the way it was last time.
All right. Anything else? Mark?
Actually, the next question was just asked. We have to decide how we're going to select the second opinion.
Can I ask a question? So do we retain this firm, or do we pay them based on how we use them? How does that work?
Last time there was a retainer. And that's like I said, I don't think we would be comfortable allotting $7,000 a month to this. Doesn't need to be that much, I don't think. So there was a retainer set. We did amend the budget at that time because we knew it was going to overrun the budget. And then we set the ground rules on access. And it at that point, it was a 50-50 board at that point. So it was, the 3 of us that weren't on that side at the time, we eventually availed ourselves of the opportunity. Like, okay, this is corporate authority, our corporate, or legislative council, let's ask a couple things. Within the timeframe where there was Julie Tappendorf at the time, where she sort of had hours. She came to, when we were at the other community center, she would come early, and there's a little conference room in there, and she'd sit in the back, and if you had something you wish to discuss with her, we would do that. Again, I don't think that's what we're looking at, based on what we've gone through to get to this point. I think there was more specific questions, and I believe the model you were talking about, Trustee Benetti, is where we agree on what's the second opinion we're asking for. I think it would control us a lot more.
Okay, Nick?
I would actually like to, I'm very reluctant adding this legislative council, but after our last meeting, I do understand the need for it and why it is on here. And I would ask President Wojnicki if you have any opinions on how much you believe that we would need legislative counsel over the course of a month. And, you know, we're talking, in the past, it's been $7,000 a month. We just had a $900 bill for a 2-page document, and Lauterbach and Amen has been contentious at $88,000 a year. A service we genuinely are lacking in need. We've all agreed on that, and that expense has been brought up over and over. So the only reason I asked President Wojnicki is it would be nice to figure out a reasonable amount that you believe you would need it, that we could say, I don't need legislative counsel. The policy that we've had for the board has been to refer to the administrator, and the administrator can give us access to the attorney if appropriate, or he can take the questions to the attorney when he's having meetings with the attorney. I don't ever call you Carmen. I talk to Mark. But I would really like to know going into this what we're actually going to spend, because really, you know, in our budget, the one shining star is that $75,000 line item for legislative counsel that hasn't been used at all. And now we're going to dip into that. So while we want to provide that because it is needed, we have determined that, let's set firm parameters, and I think your feedback would be genuinely appreciated on this. Maybe not even now, but if you put some thought into it and just let us know, I think your feedback would be very important.
All right. Anything else?
I have one. So,
Sure.
would we be able to do this à la carte versus retaining a firm?
That's a good
Just like we
question.
did for the opinion on the org chart? Could we just say, when the question comes up, we'll, we decide on a firm and say, we're gonna go to this firm and get an opinion? It might cost us a little bit more for that specific opinion, but overall, to Trustee Boatner's point, it might be a lot cheaper in the long run to do it that way if we don't have that many questions.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is to that. Yeah.
May I address it?
Go ahead, Janet.
I don't think it matters. I mean, you're going to have an engagement agreement, right? And the engagement agreement is going to set a certain rate, very much like the HRTU agreement. And the engagement agreement is not going to require that we use a certain number of hours per month or anything like that, like, other, service agreements. And so I think the retainer, if we're asked to provide one at all, is really just to initiate the relationship, and have something to draw off against, for the, first, first couple of engagements, against it. So I don't think it changes the cost structure.
Go ahead, Mike.
So then we're thinking it would be one firm, one individual. There's some continuity that maybe helps than shopping individual questions around. And then if that's what we're thinking, then we need to decide how to select that, how to select that firm. We have Ansel Glink's possibility. I think Mickey Wilson would be another firm that does municipal law. They got more names on it, but I think the first two are still Mickey Wilson. I think there's a couple firms that maybe some of us wouldn't want to. I'm not going to state anything publicly. We would need to talk about that private. And I don't know if we're talking about interviewing individuals for that purpose, or if we were just looking at, the firm and maybe a resume. I don't know if we have to do that, but we probably should maybe have that fleshed out a little bit more by the next meeting. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah. Go ahead, Therese.
I like the idea of a firm versus an individual, because one of the things that we had looked at with Ansel Glink is that, and I'm not suggesting them because I know that's going to cause a massive, heart attack over somewhere, but that they had multiple, different departments that they had offered up. Like they said, they've got a TIF lawyer, they have someone who works really well with developments, they have, so they had, it was going to be a multitude, like a big team, not just one attorney. So my vote would be for a firm of some kind that offers the same kind of like diversity like that.
So what if we do some research and come back with some costs of what it would cost to retain, different firms for trustees, if you feel you need it? I mean, you could do the work too and just bring it back. We could just do another discussion item at our next meeting if you want. How does that sound? Okay. All right. 7B, corrections and amendments to various parts of the village code and other documents to align with the organization chart. Now, I know we already talked quite a bit about the organization chart, but Mike?
I'm super chatty lately.
You are.
Just, by the way, Madam President, of notice, I will be out of the country for the next 3 days. Got a Board of Trustees meeting up in Montreal for
Oh,
American Public Works.
nice.
Well, it's going to be colder up there.
Yeah.
So I don't know what coverage is going to be, so just, anyway. The one thing, and I'm, it's always been a debate with me based on my life as work and here as an elected official. And the fact that I know no place I've ever worked would be this place, just can't be because of size. Which I always thought may be a good thing, because there's some junk that was at some of the places I worked. And I joked with many folks when we had that zero budgeting thing that we had to do one time when I was in Lombard, which was absurd, because we had 100-and-something years of experience at that time. So we actually did zero budgeting when we started up Campton Hills. So try to balance between the president's powers, appointment powers, and then the practicality of running a business. And the one thing I'd like to, at least I think, hopefully we'll all agree on, get some head nods. Expanding on the point, Frank, are we in committee of the whole now? Could we be informal? We should do that. Trustee Benetti made that we echoed on for Chief Lavand is at some point a CEO, and that's to the state statute that basically alludes to the president mayor being the CEO of the organization. They certainly can go down to the floor and talk to employees. It's their right as the chief executive. Is it smart? Is it good management practice to do that? And I believe that's what we've been really trying to set here, and the 2016 chart did have the dotted lines that Trustee Burson worked into one of the three that we're looking at. So when we talk about this, my thought is we've had 3 sets of duties that we've been using for our first administrator. There was a set of duties. The code says one thing, but there was the actual practical set of duties as what she was doing. Then when we shopped out to whatever, it was still PAR or whatever they were called, when we hired Ron, there was a set of duties in that contract. This is what we're paying for. And it was clear when we hired that's we're hiring you to be our administrator, here's what you're doing, even though it doesn't say that in our village code. And then we started with MGT and now with J.M. Rooney, we have also that. So I think we've got a basis to start with on what we think the administrator should be doing. And if we can look at what the duties are based on those engagement letters that we've had and the scope of services that we've had on the other documents and the job description, we do have a job description. If we could start with that, and then maybe we can weed that out, if that's okay with everybody. I think maybe it'll make the process go a little bit smoother. Because it's always, like I said, it's that balance between, the code we're not home rule, it's clear what we are, and we haven't adopted council manager, it's clear what we are. However, every other town I'm familiar with that hasn't adopted council manager, that has an administrator, has ceded some of that authority collectively with the permission of the president to the administrator. And I think that's the key. It's convincing the president that, this is stuff that I don't want to do anyway, so let the administrator do it. It sounds a little callous, but using it as a basis.
Frank?
Yeah, I just think to that point, you know, it's about respect and accountability. So even though you have the power to go to the employees, you don't necessarily want to unless you feel something's wrong, right? Or, you know, and at that point, you can make a change. If you're the CEO, you can make a change anywhere along the lines. But, you know, to me, you have to respect your people that you've hired to manage your business. And you have to hold them accountable for the things that you've given them as goals. And as long as it operates that way, I think you're in pretty good shape, right? As soon as you get out of those lanes, you have problems. And my suggestion would be that if we think we've hired the right people, and we have the right people, you gotta have respect for those people. You gotta give them clear goals, and you gotta hold them accountable. And I think if the structure is like that, you'll have a successful operation, so.
All right, are we ready to move on, or go ahead, Janet?
I took the opportunity to provide some examples of how we could break down some of these tasks that we have in front of us to align the code with the charts. You know, I've got a really nerdy analogy for Kim. You know, each of the individual points here, you know, is like a commit on Git, and the ordinance is a push. And so you can decide how you want to organize these things. They can be, you could have 10 different ordinances, you could have fewer with more things packed into them. I know Carmen can give us advice about that. But I grouped them by the things that made sense to me. And so the first one that I was suggesting was just some simple alignments with the chart from what I harvested out of our code. So if we want our code to align with the chart, then we need it to say that the administrator is appointed and removed by the corporate authorities and supervises non-officer staff, can hire and terminate non-appointed staff subject to policies, et cetera. And that no individual member can manage, supervise, or direct staff and contractors, which we had in a box on the chart. We were told that that doesn't really mean anything. Well, I think we all believed that it meant something then, and so one way or another, I think we want to say that in our code. The CEO label, I think, does need to be clarified. You know, the CEO designation is followed by a pretty long and specific list of enumerated powers. And one of those enumerated powers is the right for the president, the CEO of the village, to inspect the books and records of really pretty much anyone, right? And that's something that a supervisor often, you know, would find themselves doing, right? And so I believe there's a general consensus amongst municipal attorneys that if the legislature meant for it to say that the CEO could supervise, that the president could supervise, it would say that. It would not enumerate one aspect of supervision and leave the other ones out. So I think that that's an issue that we've hashed through before. I think that's why we have the supervision chart, supervision and hiring, separate from the other chart. I don't think it was clear in our code where the police chief appoints and reports, so we need to clarify that if an org chart that we have is what we're rolling with. I had suggested an amendment to the treasurer ordinance back in September when we started talking about Lauterbach and Amon and Sikich and so forth seriously. I did not know who was going to be appointed treasurer. I didn't know if it was going to be someone in our orbit. I didn't know if it was going to be someone from one of those companies. I knew those were both possibilities, and I knew that we were going to need to sort out where the boundaries lay between the appointed treasurer and the company that the corporate authorities had designated to do most of the work. It's a maker-checker type of arrangement, right? So the accounting firm doing the work is the maker, and the treasurer is the checker of the work. The third ordinance I suggested was to just review and clarify our removal procedures, because we have a catch-all provision that just says per statute. And we probably should just echo what that is and have it be really clear, so if anybody wonders what's involved in removing whoever, maybe it shouldn't take you 2-3 hops to get there if our code said what the state expects it to say. I think it'd probably be a good idea. The administrator is a special case because the removal of the administrator is not covered in state statute. Administrator as a concept is not covered in state statute. I also have some suggestions about interim appointments. And then lastly, personnel policy conformance. Things get into the personnel policy manual that actually relate to this organization chart stuff, and we don't really think about it because we're top-down, but there's everybody else who's on the ground looking at this book and trying to decide what does all this really mean for them. And Trustee Muir had suggested that we can take the org chart and use some of our fancy digital tools that we are already paying for from Microsoft and others, and actually make the org chart come alive on people's desktops and allow them to really see how all of this works for them as an individual, which I thought would be kind of cool if she could do that. She'd have to get our attorney to agree that employee's view says what really is, I suppose, but I thought it was a really cool idea when you brought it up. I have a list here of different things that, again, I harvested out of the personnel policy manual that we would need to make an adjustment to. So I don't know exactly what all of these adjustments are going to be. There's devils in the details with all of them, but full disclosure, because I think a lot of us are using AI tools these days for some of this work, and I did go through and ask for, based on the charts that we have, to look for everything that ties into that. And then I kind of grouped them together based on that. So that's how I came up with these 5. I don't really care whether it's 5 or 1 or 15, but I think we have to work through these topics.
All right. Ken?
I'd like to add another one that we should consider too. It does concern village attorney R code, so it's 1-7D-1 and it's B, the terms and terminations of positions. The last sentence, the attorney or firm or corporate authorities may terminate such appointments within 30 days written notice. That really isn't part of state statute, so I'm not so sure, us being non-home rule, that can actually be there.
Sure, if the firm would like to terminate our engagement, we can. Our engagement says that we can terminate at will, both sides, no matter what. So I would agree with you. If it's not something that the board is comfortable with, then that's something we can look at removing.
Well, it's not so much what's in the letter of engagement, because that is in the letter of engagement, but I'm not so sure it can be in our code.
If you'd want to align it with the removal statute exactly, then you would remove that. Or you, as trustee Burson indicated, I believe in the document, that you could call out the provisions for removal of an officer to remove any ambiguity in the village code.
All right,
It would have to match the municipal code, but it's fine.
Therese?
So I appreciate trustee Burson putting this together, and I think it kind of highlights, like right up front, there's several issues here that are going to need some sort of legal opinions. As I know, the CEO issue in Ordinance 1 is something that we all debate frequently, and so we're going to need to get an understanding on that, because some of us believe that is much broader than others, and so that's going to be an area of, I think, a lot of disagreement. And so I think this just highlights the need for us to possibly have a designated meeting to go over some of this and maybe have some, have an opportunity to do some legal research first, if some of us need to get a second opinion or whatever we decide, before the meeting, so that we make the best use of the meeting as we can, so we can take a look at some of these things and be prepared.
Okay. All right, let's see. Additional items from
No, 7C.
I'm sorry?
7C.
No, yeah, okay, we moved it. All right, setting the percentage of employee cost share for healthcare, dental, vision benefits, as well as defining MTO and overtime policies for fiscal year 2026 and 2027. Yeah, get up, by the microphone.
I guess
Sure.
one thing I didn't mention earlier is on the Friday finance update, I gave you a copy of the Fair Labor Standard Act regarding overtime and police officers or first responders, but police are the only thing we care about. And so that's one question I need you to tell me. The law, according to what I provided, I think it was in fact sheet number 8, and that law says that you have to pay overtime once you hit 86 hours in 14-day period. And our current practice, I believe, that I gave you a copy, what was in the personnel manual, is we pay at 84 hours, correct, Chief? Yeah, so that's something above and beyond what we're required by law to do. Excuse me?
No, we're just,
Yeah.
yes,
Keep it.
So keep it, is that the consensus, to keep it as is? I just wanted to make sure you knew what the law said before you said, yeah, keep it. Okay, so you're okay with that. That was the overtime, and then the policy on the managed time off, I believe, currently they can carry over 280 hours. Is that correct? I sent that out to you as well in the policy manual. It's 280 hours, right?
It's 280 hours and MTO is 288.
So they can literally carry over 488 hours between the two of them?
That's correct.
Okay.
Holiday bank was eliminated.
So everybody's okay with that, or does anybody want to visit that? I just want to make sure, because one of the things that I think those things were spelled out in the personnel manual so we could find it. This other stuff was not. And I think that it recommends in the policy manual that annually the corporate authorities revisit these benefit things. So I think that we should put a resolution together for every year during the budget process. You guys just revisit these things to make sure you either want to change it or just continue it. So
And that's what I was suggesting in the budget process that we do.
I know, but I want the numbers before, because we're starting so late this year. I want to know what this board wants to do so we can have a resolution at the next meeting, because the budget hearing is going to have to be on the 7th, and I don't want to waste time talking about it then. So, okay, so the consensus is everybody's okay with the way that, okay, go ahead.
Jan?
Oh, no, I'm okay with the MTO, I'm sorry. I'm going to have a question when we get to the.
Oh,
Okay.
mine was, I'm not saying yes or no on the policy. I mean, we got to be careful. Based on where we are and waits to attract officers, I don't want to spook them that we're, changing stuff.
Right.
It would be appropriate to, what's our accrued liability on that right now?
Well,
If you can,
we can't really tell you, because I don't remember, Russ, do you remember how many employees she has left? Julie has 2 more full-time
Okay.
police officers to get through on the managed time off.
okay, I just,
So
if,
we
when
will
you do the,
know.
we just do, okay,
Well,
that's
we
fine.
know we have an issue with the deputy chief. I mean,
Okay. Well, he's about to, maybe, can we say that publicly?
In a
I don't
year,
know. Okay.
2026.
All right, he's announced or no?
He told me.
Okay.
a year-
Did he announce?
I don't know.
Hasn't? Fine, okay.
So no, I don't know anything.
Okay, fine.
official.
Then, yeah, I mean,
But
we
I'm
just-
just saying, I think he's over the 280 and the 288, so once we figure that out, that's also going to be a discussion we're going to have to talk about during the budget on
Okay.
how we handle people that are over.
Well, I mean,
They get paid out.
well, or you have to use it, or you have to use it. I mean,
Well, you might
my
have
town,
to-
you have to
I
use
know
it.
that we had to force Bob Reichart to take like a lot of time
Yeah, that's
off
true.
1 year, so.
Okay.
But those are decisions that we're gonna have to make during the budget hearing, I
Okay.
think, on that specific employee. But, so she should have that finished, maybe we'll have it finished by the next meeting, I don't know. We'll definitely have it finished by the time we do the budget. Okay, so we're okay with that stuff. Okay, so, do you want to do what Administrator Rooney recommended with the 10% for employee, 35% for the employee and spouse, and 35% for employee and children, and 50% for family, or do you have other ideas?
Actually, checking after we talked, more information from the chief and looking at some union contracts, I think I'd be saying 10, 15, and 25 or 35 for the family, but 10% for the employee as a cap of their contribution, and 15 if they have an spouse, the +1, whether it's, and then if they have their children, it's family, they gotta go with the family plan.
Well, except the employee can have one child,
Yeah.
and it's less, and it's not
It-
family.
And that could be the 15 or the 25% for the family.
So you want to, is that?
10, 15,
10?
25.
Well, there's 4 categories, so I need 10, 15, 15. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, it's 10, 15, 15, and 25. 35 is
Let me ask.
the
Chief
highest for the
first.
family.
Chief Levan is,
I'm going to refrain from this conversation this evening, so,
okay,
yeah, I'm going to refrain from it.
all right. Janet, go ahead.
So I have questions before I can talk about percentages. If I understand the numbers the real numbers, not the proposed numbers, the real numbers correctly, there's a wrinkle in the way that we're charging for spouse versus employee with children versus family. And so unless you are employee only, you will pay the least extra if you go with a family plan, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's just
Right,
you and a
that's the way it
spouse.
was- That was the
even
way
if-
they set it up in 2021.
Right,
And
s-
that caused a single rate to go
Right,
up.
and so the cheapest rate that we have in terms of an additional charge, because if you've normalized it out so that the cost for the employee's insurance is the same for everybody. So the cost for the family, the additional premium, the best deal you're going to get is the family deal, which is the most people, potentially insured, the, higher expenses and so forth. So the way that we did it doesn't really,
Technically, the people that had employee spouse and employee children should have signed up for the family plan because it was cheaper than just having
well,
one
it might not have been
dependent.
obvious, and it's only a few dollars for them anyways, and they didn't have the benefit of your spreadsheet.
Right.
But my other question related to that is, this is what we were charging them. What is our cost, relatively speaking, on employee and spouse, employee and children and
Well, if
family?
you look on that third line, under the first category, under current and premiums and deductions, you look under the second line.
So we have monthly,
Or the third line, village's share. So for one employee, it's $110,068 per month. For the employee and spouse, it's $1,772.92. For an employee and child, it's $1,758.35. And for the family, it's $2,715.05.
so in round numbers, it's almost $1,000 extra for family coverage that we pay.
Yeah, and, yeah.
Right.
And
And-
1,700 more for the family plan. We're
And-
absorbing a lot.
And so, if, 'cause I don't think we should be nickeling and diming our police officers. We work hard to recruit
No,
them.
I'm just trying to find out what your
And we work
percentage
hard
is.
to pay them well. And so, relative to the first 2 issues that came up earlier, in both of those cases, like, I didn't want to get into it because I didn't want to nickel and dime police officers. And on this, like, I feel like we need to maybe ask you if you could do us a little more analysis to help us align what police officers would be choosing if it was based just on their family composition
Well, if you look.
versus what
it dep-
maybe they are choosing.
I mean, we
and what
chose,
we're-
we chose the 50%, you know, we chose the 10, 35, 50 on the second half of this form. And so at 50%, the employee would be paying $1,071.05, and the village would be paying
Yeah, well,
$2,051.94.
but I'm not even down to the proposed percentages and stuff at all. I'm still stuck at what we're actually paying for all of this.
Well,
And so,
it's
and so,
on this
no,
line.
so I understand. But what I'm trying to make a point about it, which is that if we have even just a couple of people that are signed up for family coverage, when that is in fact not what they need, correcting that would save us thousands of dollars a month. And so when we're trying to consider whether police officers should be paying 10% or 15% or 20% or whatever percent it is, the need in terms of what it is, the cost that we're trying to defray, I would think might go down if we could match people's,
I think
policy
people
with
are
what the-
in, I mean, and you can maybe confirm, I think people are in the right category. The issue is that in 2021, the people that were involved, and I'm not sure a board decision was made related to this, they wanted family coverage, and they chose to push that premium down and push the other ones up. That's why it's falsely lower than it probably should be for family. That's my understanding. So it's not because people are in the wrong category, because they're in the right category. The problem is that the way it was structured in 2021 made it more favorable for the family.
Okay, thank you, good explanation. Then in that case, different version of the same issue for me, because before I start to think about how many more percent a police officer should possibly pay for their health insurance, dental, vision, it's all gonna cascade the same way, I think. But before I figure out whether somebody should pay 5% more or possibly a lot more than that, I'd like to know that the costs align with the charges, and so I think we need to engage Chief Levand, and you have all of this data which you've provided to us, and maybe get Administrator Rooney involved and figure out, aside from the cost-sharing percentages that you're talking about, what the impact is to his department. If you left the percentages the same as they are, what would the impact be if that extra $900 to $1,000 a month for family coverage, which they're not paying, nobody who gets it today is paying.
That's not true. What makes,
Well, the
you
employee
mean
isn't
down
paying.
lower?
The employee's
You mean
share
this-
is $290, $250.
Right now, the employee's share is $407.94. That's what they're paying today for the family plan. And the village is paying $2,715.05 for family. The total premium is $3,000, $122.99 a month. That's what's currently happening today.
Okay.
And these rates are fixed until June 30th. At July 1st, they change, and we should find out March 19th. Then they're going to come out and give us the new rates, and they're going to be more expensive than this. Maybe a
Well,
lot more expensive.
I'm sure they will,
Yeah.
but I still would like to know that the people who are on the family plan are.
Well, I don't think we can provide that through HIPAA, but I can
No.
maybe find out how many.
No, I don't care
we
the
have.
individuals, not
Yeah,
the
how
individuals,
many
obviously,
Do
but.
you know how many family members we have? Do you want to join in here?
Three people.
You gotta go. Sorry, Russ.
There's only three people.
according to the chief and I looking at it.
As far as them being on it and not being eligible for it, we just signed up a new officer today who's taking the family plan. We have to provide IPPC with a copy of their marriage certificate and birth certificates for the two kids. So you have to prove that you're entitled to family insurance. Now, how much they're paying may affect their decisions, may come in when there's a spouse that also has coverage, and they're gonna pick the cheaper. You know what I mean?
Okay.
They're gonna do which is common sense. They're gonna do what's best for them financially. But as far as, somebody that, if it's just himself, the husband and wife, and they don't have any kids, they can't sign up for family coverage. So, yeah, I don't know if that's answering your question.
It does,
Okay.
it does, it helps.
Yeah.
It's, oops, sorry.
But it is ultimately a retention recruitment aspect, and that's why I think a 10, 15, 15 and 25 isn't going to lose us people. And-
Let Chief talk, yeah.
I just have one comment to say on this. Like, every officer is realistic when it comes to a fair share of insurance. And people realize that insurance is gonna continue to go up. What is not realistic, I don't care what company you work for, to say 50% is insulting. You don't think your officers listen to these board meetings? They do, every single one of them. Not saying it's on you guys, but I'm saying the conversation of 50% is insult.
That's an issue, it is.
Yeah. Again, just so you know, the only reason that was here is because the administrator told me that was the norm, and that's the standard we use for the example.
We
It's
have-
not uncommon in the corporal world.
Right.
We have to take care of our police officers. That's mainstay in our village. Therese, go ahead.
So if I'm reading this correctly, is the first line here, the employee's blended percentage, what they're currently, that's the percentage they're currently paying?
Correct.
So it's not, so we didn't have a sort of
I thought-
like 10, 15, 50, you know what I'm saying?
No,
Was it just an arbitrary number? We're not quite sure.
we're not really sure
We're
how
not
that
sure.
happened,
Okay.
right? We've tried it, we've looked at the numbers, it doesn't make sense to us. We would have thought we would have found a 10% or a 15%, but this is how it's worked out.
But I guess the reality is, from, chief's standpoint, we're going to increase the employee to 10% from 9, I mean, that's kind of a wash. The 215s are a bit of a, I mean, they're off, there's at 18.83.
They'll be saving money.
Right. And then we're going to be kind of adding it back to the family, which you said maybe makes sense, given that you think some of this was kind of loaded a little bit towards.
That's my understanding.
Sure, okay. Just to make that clear. And you said what percentage of our officers are on the family plan? You
Well,
said
we
just,
think 3
we
or
don't know?
4.
I think there's 3. It's 3.
Plus the
Okay.
guy that just enrolled today.
I think he's the third, because Chief and I thought there was only 2 on the family.
Do you have any suggestions on this?
No, I don't have any suggestions. Again, that's up to you guys to decide. You have to look at all the
Yeah.
things that you're looking at as far as employee retention and what's fair and not fair.
Yeah.
All I'm looking for is give me a number.
Right,
so
we
that-
need it for the
And-
that we
budget.
yeah.
know. I mean, we go to onboard somebody, we can't tell them, we don't know what the policy is. So we're saying if you guys decide what you want that to be, then we've got something that we can follow going forward.
Well, you know what it's been.
I want to think that at some point, my understanding is years ago, it used to be where the village paid 99% and the employee paid 1%. And then at some point, that moved up to 10% and maybe 30% for any additional coverage beyond the single coverage. The rates, the deductions have not been changed for a number of years, and that's why those percentages, you're seeing them at 9.4%. They're not 10% because they never changed from when they were initially brought up to that 10% and 30%.
The last 2 budget cycles, you didn't adjust the deductions. because we tried to retain the officers.
Well,
And that's
yeah,
it, but again, I don't know if there was, what was the direction from the board that it's this dollar amount is what you deduct for single coverage, or was the direction, it's 10%?
Mike.
The employee pays 10%.
Microphone.
I'm sorry.
The key tonight, irrespective of the history, how we got to this point, the chief, and I said, the worst case in bigger cities to have a 50-50 plan when they have 100 officers, because 100 officers on a $30,000 PPO plan, that adds up to a lot. And that's why they have a higher cost share. But in our small type community, and the 10, 12 people that are going to be eligible for it, we've got one that's on, well, one that just came on, but we have one that's on their family plan at home, not our plan. So you really only have about 12 is your fixed number. And for retention, the chief and I went back and forth Friday and then today, and that's why we're saying 10, 15, 15, and 25. Not 50 for the family.
Just information we did not hear until just now, right?
Right. Yeah, again, the other reason why the 1035, what was it, 1035 and 50 was in there was because that's what Mark had suggested earlier.
Well,
That's,
it's not really what,
So this is a,
irrespective, that's not what I'm recommending to the body. 10, 15, 15, and 25. He knows that.
Okay.
Mike, go ahead.
to that point, it seems to be officers watching, we're not doing 50%. To the point, yeah, we need to know this information. I mean, people, I've had this happen a lot too. We have to have an honest discussion to talk about the numbers, and with respect, it's not intended to be insulting to anyone. It's
Yeah,
just,
well-
it's just an actual discussion of the budget, especially given the stuff that's happened. Now, to what we just talked about earlier with our head nodding, yeah, we want to be unique to how we have to attract and retain officers. So looking at these numbers, if we then go to 10, 15, 15, 25, I mean, it's not what it is now, but it is, I think, a little bit more realistic. And I don't suspect if we're talking 25, that means the family share goes up to maybe from $400 to $600, rough math. Because it's just temporary too, based on what the rates are going to be when we get our renewal too. If the, you know, if we had a bigger pool, we'd have other insurance options too. So we're limited on what we're getting for, you know, people have issues about HMOs or something. For our standpoint, it's worked for my family. You know, all Michelle's cancer treatment was, you know, less than $10,000 out of pocket. So there's something to be said for that, but there's a lot of other hoops you have to go through, right, for an HMO. So we've had this issue with healthcare for ages. And so, yeah, anybody watching this, we're just talking budget numbers here. Please just let us have a discussion. Don't read anything into it at this point. We definitely need feedback. I mean, if we were told 25% would make those three family members want to leave, then maybe we should hear that. But I'm hoping it wouldn't be. But that's a fair thing to say. Maybe that, you know, 'cause maybe the leap from 13 to 25 is too much. I'm hoping it's not.
Yeah, we got
but-
feedback from
Yep.
Chief, yeah. All right, Frank, go ahead.
So is the insurance that we get on a municipal level any different than the private sector gets?
Yes,
When-
we're in a pool. The IPBC pool, they've got large communities, counties, larger communities, and they've got the smaller.
No, but I guess my question is, do we have any say-so of what the coverages are? Because what happens with us, where where I've worked, is they always get a summary from the insurance company as to what coverages were used. And then you can kind of define what you offer based on what's being used, right? And, well, I mean, as far as costs, that's how they manipulate the actual cost. So we're talking about share. I'm talking about overall cost, that you can manipulate that cost down a little bit if you know kind of what you're offering, right? Or what the deductibles
The
are. or-
deductibles, that's where
Yeah.
you touch on
Yeah,
that.
and, you know, a lot of different things. So maybe we need to look at that a little bit too, because if we can get the overall cost down, then it brings everybody's cost down. The other thing I would caution is if, one, you need to communicate to the officers and all the employees that take insurance, what the expectations are, what the costs, you know, give them statistics about insurance costs and stuff, so they understand, and I think Chief was pretty clear about that, that the officers are aware that that kind of stuff's gonna happen. But I think it's unrealistic to go to them and say, hey, you're gonna pay more than double from this year to next year. So I think we need to keep that in mind as well, right? That, you know, sticker shock is a big deal. So there needs to be a way to layer this, and maybe you go to the officers and say, here's what's gonna happen over the next 2, 3, 5 years to insurance costs, so, just so you understand. So the communication and setting the expectation, and then doing some of the homework for them to, you know, try to get a better overall deal, that's gonna come across a lot better than if we just go to them and say, hey, remember that family plan that you got a great deal on? Well, it's gonna be 2.5 times what you were paying, right? And that's not what's happening, but, you know, that's not a good way to approach it, so.
Yeah, you used to be able to steer people to the HMO because the deductibles were so
Yeah.
much lower. But the way they have kind of closed that gap, there's not as big a way to steer it with the deductibles there used to be.
I just think we need to start talking with the insurance company first and then work out a plan
Well,
from there.
well said,
Ru-
Frank.
Russ is very familiar with IPBC, and he can talk to that, but do they even have an HMO option? And
They
is there a
absolutely-
reason we haven't offered it? Is there a reason the village has never offered that?
But that's my point. We should really be talking to the insurance company first and say, here's, what are the
There is an
options?
HMO plan that's available. There is.
Is there any reason we've never offered that?
I don't think
Lack
so,
of
because
interest, maybe?
IPPC offers it to all their member communities, whether
Even if
you're,
you're small or large?
well, the small, their numbers are different, but yes, what they offer is to all their members. And they've got 250, you know, members. They started out with like 5 when it began in 05, 06, when it was Wheeling, Glenview, and Buffalo Grove. We formed it, and then it just is, over the last 20 years, it's blown up to 250 member communities.
Can you talk to what kind of information we'll get between now and the hearing on April 4th, and whether there's any wheeling and dealing to be done with a pool, an insurance pool?
We've got a call tomorrow with our representative from IPBC to go over a couple of things. And I can ask her some more questions on this. I do know we've got the high deductible plan as an offering, which is a cheaper alternative as well. That's the last column. We've got one employee that's on that. But you can also do that on a family basis as well. I think there was and I'm going to take Mark's word on it, that there was an HMO option that the village has not opted for. So you can look at adding that in. We'll find out more. They've got their annual meeting on March 19th, and I'm assuming if this works similar, I've never worked with IPBC before, but I've worked with other co-ops. And usually at that annual meeting, you'll get some type of documentation. It'll give you some information on what your costs were, what your rates were, and that we can share with the board. At that time, they're also going to be talking about what the increase is going to be. And indications right now are, you know, you're looking at 20 to 30% increase in premiums for health care. So,
In the last 2 years, it's been in single digits, and this year it's going to be big.
it's going to be big. And, you know, you could always explore, you could talk to some insurance brokers that just do one-off and try to see what you could do there. But you are benefiting typically from the buying power of this co-op. I mean, this co-op is big. Our monthly premium is $24,000 for all our employees. Their total for the whole co-op, their monthly premium is like $30 million. I mean, it's big. So they've got a lot of buying power. So we'll find out more on the 19th at their annual meeting. We'll get more information. But in the meantime, when we talk to Shannon tomorrow, we can find out what other options are. And I believe we could restructure, you could change deductibles. There's things you can do to tweak your plan, like Frank said, to try to bring the costs down, so.
Kim, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I'm gonna, real quick, I was actually
Okay.
trying to find it in my notes, and I actually found the year 2021, but I haven't been able to find the exact board meeting where the board did consent to going with this co-op, okay? And they went with it because of the buying power of the numbers there, so, I think that the co-op is probably still the best option. Sarah, but looking for the HMOs or whatever, they probably don't have a PPO.
No, they do.
They have a PPO?
That's basically what, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're using.
Most of our employees take PPO.
Okay.
They all
That's
do.
the standard.
They're all PPOs, okay, all right. But I'm just saying, the board did, the current administrator at the time found it, brought it, it was consented on and approved. Is it on the last couple budgets that we didn't review the numbers? Sure, okay. But that's where we're at, and no, we're not, no 50%.
So,
Based on the timing of this, should we have a meeting, a separate meeting just on this topic? Because there's a lot, I mean, you talk about PPOs, there's different kinds of PPOs too, right? If you're in network versus out of network, one costs more than the other. You know, there's a
That's in the
lot.
plan document. We can get you the
But
plan
that's what I'm saying. I
document.
mean, should we have
I
a separate
question.
meeting?
Could we have, on the 19th, could we invite a representative from their company, from the IPVC, to come present?
They don't usually do that.
They won't do that.
I mean, that's when they're having their alcohol.
Yeah, on the 17th, yeah, and that's the problem, the meeting's 2 days afterwards.
Maybe as we get closer to renewal?
What?
If we
Well,
had an
have to
HR
budget,
company,
though.
that would be helpful.
We have to budget, though. I mean, I guess the issue I have, or what I hear you saying, is that you're comfortable with 10, 15, 15, 25 may be too much. Should we do numbers for 25 for family and 20 for family?
I'm gonna caution, because if it's going up 30%,
I
and
know.
then you're gonna raise the percentage.
Well, right,
it's
these
gonna-
compound, right?
Yeah, it's,
So that's what I'm concerned about. If somebody gets, if the cost of somebody's family plan coverage goes up more than other people's, and then they get, the 20% increase that across the board that everybody gets, and we've increased their percentage share from 13% to, 25% or something. These things compound and they become a big hit to the officer. So, I mean, we've got to look at all these things together. We can't say to you right now, well, yeah, any given particular split sounds right, because they all work together.
Okay, how about we have a special meeting after the 19th, so the week of the 20, can we meet here on the 24th? That'll give us 1 week to plug in the numbers before the public hearing, or 2 weeks to plug in numbers. If we have a special meeting on the 24th to discuss this and all these other benefit things, or other budget stuff that we still have questions about, would that work?
Good for me.
I do believe we
Okay.
need a special budget workshop before you go to a public hearing on the budget on the 7th of April. So if we could get everybody to look at their calendar for the 24th.
That's fine for me.
Are you okay with that? I mean, you are the budget officer. Yeah,
Deb,
it's a
Okay,
Tuesday.
go
Can I go?
ahead,
Okay.
Mike, yeah.
Deb, another thing too, folks watching on TV. We got to remember that this is the blended rate too, and that confuses some people too. So that's actually a 34% on the proposed chart. Again, we're not going there. We need to get more explanation to the rank and file what that means.
Yeah, well, and that's what I wanted to ask for clarification.
Good.
When you guys are saying 10%, 15%, 25%, is that the blended rate, or is that the incremental rate? So in other words.
We don't
all-
know.
We don't know.
Okay, well,
Pitch it to us both ways.
Yeah, well, we're going to be talking about it in the 24th.
I'm sorry.
And we make that a special meeting of the village board for a budget workshop and invite the finance committee
I
as
mean,
well.
Because the way it's structured now is that, every employee only pays 10% of whatever that dollar amount is for the single coverage. Then you subtract the premium for that single coverage from the premium for whatever package they've picked, and then that's when you apply the extra 15% or 25% or 30%.
But whatever it is, isn't changing this month, right? So we're, so whether it's good or bad, it's confusing or not, doesn't really matter. I mean, we're going to be talking on the 24th about what we want to do going forward. We can answer your questions tonight.
Okay.
The only other thing I wanted to know is, if it's true we have to offer them a minimum of 100,000 life insurance,
Goes on the
then
next agenda.
then we just do that. But is anybody interested in offering, if they can keep it, should we bring people up to 100,000? And they offer accidental death and life, and just so you know, for example, the people paying $100,000 of term life insurance are paying $245 a month, or the villages, $245 a month and 78 cents for accidental death and dismemberment. And then the $70,000 benefit is $1.71 per month for life and 55 cents for accidental death. So that might be a really nice thing to do for the officers, is to maybe offer some more coverage because it's relatively inexpensive. And then the other thing is, are you interested in this EAP program at $1.61 to $2.15 per month? And if you're interested in those things, then we can go ahead and, firm up the quotes to make sure, we can find out and present it that way. But
And
you
folks
guys-
don't use the EAP that often, but when they need it, you can't beat what the cost is.
Right.
It's a fantastic program.
And it's especially, I would think, good for police officers who may be dealing with some post-traumatic stress or something from incidents they've dealt with.
So, did everybody look at their calendar? 6:30, Mr. Millet tells me he can be here. Is 6:30 a good start time for the 24th?
That'd be good.
First,
Okay, the 24th.
All
Kim,
right.
did you have a question?
About the employee assistance program,
Yep.
can we check and see if we don't already have that?
I
with our
think you
group?
have it through the health care plan. This is an additional program.
Okay. Can we,
Right. According to,
It's
it's through the same people, right, or a different company?
it's a different company. A lot of, and I don't know the specifics here, but a lot of health insurance plans have some type of EAP assistance. It may not be very robust.
Mine is.
But what IPBC did is they also contract with a company called ComPsych, okay? And their EAP is much more expanded. And the cost, as she said, the cost she gave you, that dollar something per employee per month, that's for ComPsych. And then that allows you certain things. I think they said something, and I was reading something, and it was like an 8-session thing. So I think over the course of a year, you can have 8 sessions going through the system. If you require more than that, then you have to pay additional for that, but then usually that can get covered by your health insurance.
okay.
has gotten that rate because doing it through the health insurance provider was more expensive and not as robust a coverage, and that's why they went out for all their 250 members, municipalities, counties, to do this.
And I
Okay, I just didn't
think,
want to make sure we were.
based on what I read, that I think that everybody in whichever plan it is their dependents would be eligible to call as well.
That's usually how it works. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't double
Okay, so
paying or
that's what we're
something.
gonna do. And the vision and dental, we'll try to come up with
Blame you.
something reasonable to present to you, because those are a little off too. And we'll
I
come
think
up
the
with
personnel
options on the
manual did
healthcare.
say dental is 1% for
Yeah,
the employee.
that may describe that, but again, and we'll just have to figure out, we'll do if there's something in the personnel manual, that's what we'll present. The problem is healthcare is not defined, and we'll come up with some more options. We'll give you a rate for an estimate for the life insurance and the EAP program. Can you think of anything else? Okay, thank you for
Patsy,
your
can I
time.
make a
Yes.
request
Yeah.
for that meeting?
Oh my God.
Can you put together a couple of these charts with some different employee-only percentages? Like, I'd like to see one that has 12.5% all the way across, or 15% all the way across, versus the splits, the 10, 35, 50. Like, just simplify it.
Yeah.
Have one number all the way across,
I
just
just
so we
have to
can.
find my
So,
form.
and when you're saying 12 and a half all the way across, you're saying.
12 and a half for employee, employee spouse, employee children, for each
No,
category.
So if I have family coverage, that 3,000 premium, I'm paying 12.5% of
12.5%.
that total amount.
Right.
Doesn't matter how much of that is towards the single, okay?
Right, just
All right.
all the way across,
And
just
you
simplify.
said 12 and a half and
12 and a half,
15.
15%, maybe a few, I'd
I mean,
be
any other
shocked if you needed to
percentages?
show anything over 15%. But it really simplifies things, just having one multiplier. We came up with just one.
Okay.
That's my request, that's how I would like to see it. I think we can certainly X out the 50, the 35. And do you have any idea what potentially rates, premiums are gonna go up next year? Is there,
Just
can
the
you
rumor.
anticipate it?
I've heard anywhere between 20 to 30.
Could we do it based on,
Between 20 to 30, but possibly higher.
could we see a chart with 30% then?
No,
Just-
We
that's what our total premium is going to go
No,
up.
we could
Right.
make a rate, we could do an example, a worst-case scenario, you know, like
Right.
a 30% increase, and then
Just so
apply
we can
your
see what
12
we're
and
getting
15,
into.
just to guess, as long as you all understand, it's a made-up number and
We
it's
do.
not accurate. Yeah,
Yeah, we're
Okay.
going to scare everybody.
I think we know what to do now,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Okay. All right.
All right.
I'd say motion to adjourn.
Well, we've got
No.
one other item, the affordable housing plan. I was
Oh.
waiting to get feedback from any trustee, and I've gotten zero, and so has Jim Brown. So if anybody's got the changes they'd like, if they don't have any, I'd like to move it to the consent agenda and pass it with no changes from the, because it just needs to fit this rubric, and then send it to the state. We're already late. I don't want to be further late.
Yeah.
Didn't we talk about more, additional districts possibly than what was listed?
Yeah, but I didn't, I'd heard it at the floor, but I didn't actually get what specific change anyone
I
wanted.
will send you some specifics then.
All right, motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn?
Send it to me if you still have.
So moved.
Who? Okay,
I'll
Janet?
second.
Second.
And who seconded?
Aye.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
because